Strength training is all about managing fatigue and staying away from failure. Technique and power output are of utmost importance. Because of this, a 3 to 4 day split is your best bet to focus on getting stronger. It's also much easier to recover from compared to a 5 to 6 day training program. The more you can train and recover from, the faster your progress will be. And I know most of you guys watching this work full-time jobs and probably don't want to spend 6 days a week in the gym. If you want to do all the volume in the world and push the intensity, you have to drop the training frequency. You can't push them all into the red. If you do, you're not going to be able to recover, and eventually progress is going to stall. Or you might even regress, which is much worse. And since the goal is getting stronger, we want to focus on big compound movements that promote full body strength. Movements such as the squat, bench press, overhead press, the deadlift, dips, pull-ups, rows, etc. And for those who don't know, a push-pull leg split is very, very simple to classify. So the push day is going to be any kind of movements where you're training the chest, the anterior, deltoids, your shoulders, and your triceps. Then the pull day is going to be anything like your upper back, your lats, your biceps, your rear delts, that kind of stuff. And then finally you have legs, which is going to be your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, and of course your calves. So that's basically what a push-pull leg split is. Let's go over how we're going to use it for strength, what movements you might want to pick out, and go from there. So for the push day, you can do something like the bench press followed by overhead press, move on to an incline bench press, and then use some dips at the very end. As you can see, you pick a couple of tried and true exercises to build strength in the chest, shoulders, and triceps. If you want to prioritize the overhead press instead, you simply start with that first in your rotation for the day. You can also use a seated dumbbell press instead of a barbell press or any other variation you can think of. Next, onto the pull. Usually people for strength training programs, you want to start with something like a deadlift variation, move on to something like pull-ups, dumbbell rows, and then finishing with neutral grip lat pull downs. And a good way to set this up for strength is by starting with that deadlift variation for your pull workout. Sumo, conventional, trap bar, whichever you want to get stronger at. I put pull-ups first in this example because bodyweight exercises are much more challenging than other types, especially if you can only do sets of 5 to 10 on them and you want to get better. Starting with those first after your deadlift variation is going to give you the best chance to improve performance. Don't throw them in at the end of the workout as an afterthought. Do your pull-ups. And I always recommend doing some kind of row variation. If you need to build a bigger and stronger upper back, prioritizing an upper back row and pull-ups is a great idea. Then you can throw in some lat work at the end to keep everything balanced. But the opposite is true as well. If you want to prioritize the lats, you can start with some kind of lat row where you're driving the elbow back, trying to work the lats as hard as you possibly can, and then do some upper back work afterwards after you've done your main lat work for the Finally, let's go to legs, everybody's favorite. A typical strength training leg workout is going to start with something like the barbell squat, move on to Romanian deadlifts, lunges, and then some kind of back extension or something for the lower back. And with this setup, I'm always going to recommend starting with the squat. It's a great way to warm up the entire lower body, and the stronger your squat is, the stronger your whole body will be. Everything improves when your squat goes up, so it needs to be done first to maximize performance. After the squat, doing another heavy hinging movement such as Romanian deadlifts or good mornings is going to hammer the glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. And I always recommend doing some kind of unilateral bodyweight movement. Lunges, Bulgarian split squats, or step ups, it's entirely up to you. The whole goal with these is to get a huge stretch and increase muscle mass through all of those major movements. Finally, doing some kind of low back, glute, and hamstring exercise will balance everything out. Glute ham raises, back extensions, or reverse hypers are key here. Now, since we have an idea of what a push-pull legs training program might look like, let's go over how to train for strength. If you're training for strength, this means finding big compound exercises that don't hurt. If you're a super tall guy and conventional deadlifts just don't feel right no matter how you tweak your technique, maybe it's time to move on to sumo. Or you can just pick another bar in general, such as the trap bar deadlift. This is where knowing your own individual body and how it's structured will give you an edge over newer athletes. Here's an example based on what I found for myself. I absolutely cannot do conventional deadlift whatsoever. With my legs and torso's levers and structure, every position feels weak and I just can't maintain a neutral spine no matter what I do. So I simply switched to pulling from a high handle on the trap bar and suddenly everything clicked. Mind you, I don't compete in powerlifting, nor do I plan to. So deadlifting with a straight bar doesn't matter much to me. So based on the example above, you can see how finding the right movements is essential to getting stronger. And to make this simple for you, all you need for strength training is to break your body up into movement patterns. Training for muscle growth can be done during different phases of your training, so don't worry about isolation exercises like bicep curls, tricep extensions, etc. Here are the major movement patterns you should be using for strength training to make your training balanced. First up, we have horizontal push, horizontal pull, vertical pull, and then you have a squat, a hinge, and a lunge. As long as you have one exercise dedicated to each one of these movement patterns, you'll be training the entire body to be as strong as possible. Training movement is much different than training individual muscle groups, and it's much easier to program as well. Now with all of that squared away, let's go over progressive overload for strength training so we can see how we actually run a push-pull legs program. You're going to want to stay away from failure and generate as much power as possible on each and every single rep. Even when the weight gets heavy, your goal is to move the bar as fast and forcefully as possible, especially on your warm-ups. By doing this, you're going to build your fast twitch muscle fibers, which are responsible for moving your body explosively. If you lift slowly, including on your warm-ups, it's going to be much harder to improve your total body strength. And the other thing you want to pay attention to is your recovery and limiting your fatigue as much as possible. Strength training shouldn't be done to failure. You want to make sure you have at least 1 to 2 reps away from failure at all times. And it's important to remind you that working with weights heavier than 3 reps per set is not necessary unless you're going into a powerlifting. Getting stronger in the 3 to 8 rep range is going to give you a nice blend of strength and muscle, which is perfect for long-term progress. No one can train really hard for a long period of time doing singles, doubles, and triples. It's just not gonna happen. You're gonna get beat up, your joint's gonna hate you. It's not sustainable. But with that said, you can still get stronger by improving your 10, 15, and even 20 rep max. Just think about it. If you start off deadlifting 205 and 6 months later you can do 200 for a set of 20, you got stronger. Getting stronger in all rep ranges still qualifies as strength training after all. But with that said, let's go over how to progress over time to build muscular strength. I like to start as light as possible and progress as slowly as possible. The lighter you start and the slower you progress, the longer your progress will be. On top of that, you'll get stronger in various rep ranges, which is excellent for improving muscular endurance, strength, and power. Let's use the bench press as an example. First, you're gonna start with the weight you can do for 10 reps, and you're gonna increase the weight by 5 pounds until you drop down to 5 reps. So here's how this might look. Week 1, 200 for 10. Week 2, 205 for 9. Week 3, 210 for 9. Week 4, 215 for 8. And so on and so forth. Once you get to the bottom of the rep range, which is going to be about 5 reps, it's time to take a deload for that movement. Then after you take that deload, you're going to start back up the following week by subtracting 10 to 20% and pushing for rep PRs once again. Let's drop it 10% for this example. Week 1, 215 for 15. Week 2, 220 for 14. Week 3, 225 for 13, etc. From this example, you can see it's incredibly easy to progress for long-term progress without doing a ton of sets and reps. All you need to do is work up to 1 working set and keep trying to do more weight over time. Once you plateau, you back the weight off 10 to 20% and you break rep PRs all the way back up to the plateau. Simple as that, and it works. So if you need to add more volume for specific movements that keep stagnating, you simply add a backup set or 2. Here's how this looks for the overhead press, which commonly needs more volume than the other barbell movements. Week 1, you're gonna work up to 150 for something like a set of 10. Then you take 10% off, and that's gonna be 135. Do that for a set of 12, and then you just keep progressing. Week after week, you're adding 5 pounds to your top set and to your backup set. And with this basic setup, it allows you to get into extra volume you need for certain movements, but you can also do multiple backups at the same weight as well. So instead of doing 150 for 10 and just doing a single set with 135, you can do 3 sets of 135 and just slowly increase the weight week after week by 5 pounds on that top set and on all of your backup sets. You just keep adding weight to the top set and backup sets week after week, as long as you're hitting 5 reps or more per set. Then you're gonna deload once you hit a plateau, back the weight off, and build back up. That's literally all you need to do. It's very simple. It works very well, but just make sure that you're keeping a couple reps in the tank. By not pushing to failure, you're gonna be able to maintain your technique and you're gonna be able to recover properly. And as you can see, you train your hardest movements at the beginning of each session. That way you can manage your fatigue, dial in your technique, and progress faster. If you guys want more information, you can check out my free training program for strength training using push-pull legs in the description box below. I'm also gonna link the full guide to my push-pull legs workout plan in the description box below. It covers everything you might need to know about push-pull legs. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.